I thought he was going to kill me, and then it was by a pond. I couldn't swim at the time. I was terrified of water, and I was like, this guy, he's going to kill me. And so, and there were times when I would come back into my body and I would leave. And one of the times when I came back, I was like, he's going to kill me. So I went back out. And when I was out, sort of observing everything from afar, I saw images of my relatives, and I saw an image of my uncle reading a newspaper to his daughters and telling them about my death. And my three cousins, they were all crying at the table. And something within me said, no, no, this is not it. You cannot go out like that. And then it was like a montage of everyone in my family. I just saw them. I was like, I'm gonna live. I gotta live. I got to. And so the more that I saw them, I was back into my body. And it was over, and he walked away, and he grabbed a towel, like a bath towel, and he started twisting it. And I was like, oh God, he's gonna strangle me. And he told me to stand still, like not to move. And he had a towel planted, and that's when I recognized like this thing is rigged. Like this is like, it was in a park. So I'm like, oh my God, he planned this. Like he's going to kill me. And so I took off running. And I was just like, if he catches me, he catches me. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. But until he does, I'm going to keep running. And I ran it, by that time it was nighttime, and I ran into the middle of the street. But I remember running on the double yellow lines because I wanted to be seen. I remember the headlights of cars, and this is in the 70s when people had like cars made out of steel. So I could have been destroyed, but I knew that he would not follow me if I ran on those yellow lines. Because it was dark around the park, it was easy to catch me on the sidewalk. And then the area where we were, it was like this really sort of elite area in St. Louis at a park called Lafayette Park. And all around it are these Victorian homes. But people don't really make noise there, and they don't really get involved in anything. They mind their own business. And so I ran down the double yellow lines and saw all the traffic, and I didn't care. And I ran into an antique store, and there were two men inside. These two guys were working in the shop, and they came towards me, and they were like, what happened? And I was like, I was raped. That was the first thing that came out. Even though rape wasn't in my vocabulary at that time, really, like to use. But that's what I said. And I think I said a few more things like, he's followed me, he was in the park, it's a man. But the two guys that were there, this goes into the whole race relations that are all intertwined in our lives. In the time in 1979, in that particular area, even though it was around the corner from my aunt's house, we didn't really venture into that part of town because that was the white part of town. And from my experiences and from what I had been told, it was not to trust anyone white. And so when they approached me to help me, I freaked out and I was afraid, and I ran out. And I ran to my aunt's house because that's where I was before I was lured off by the guy. And I ran home and I asked for my dad, and my mom said, well, he's not here. I kept saying, like, where is he? And she was like, he's not here. And she noticed that I was agitated and asking for my father, which is, I just wouldn't ordinarily do that. I would come in and hug people and say hi, but I didn't. I looked for my dad. And lo and behold, things came out, and my mom came into the bathroom when I was in the restroom and saw dirt on my legs. And she knew from there. She screamed and called for my father, who was, in a drunken state at the time. It was like, leave him alone. And she's like, no, it's bad. And so she was in nursing school at the time, and she examined me, and she was like, we got to go to the hospital and call the police. And so we went to the hospital, and by the time we were there, the cops were already looking for me because those two men at the antique shop called the police. So the police were looking for that guy, and then they were looking for me as well. So they came, and they had already taken the reports from those men, who actually those guys started the call, and then they took they didn't take anything from me, but they talked to my parents, who confirmed it, and then they immediately started looking for the guy that day. And a part of it is like the guy who raped me in the park. Like it was his own type of pain. But then all the people that I've known who assaulted me, it was a different type of pain. And like I had a cousin who, he knew what happened to me. I didn't talk to him about it, but he knew about it because I was at his house when it happened. His mother's my aunt, my dad's sister. And when I lived with him when my parents separated, I went with, first thing my mom thought was like, okay, you go live with her for a while. So I lived with my aunt for about 2 months, but it was right at the end of the summer, right after my birthday, when I turned 11. So a year after the trial, and my cousin, every night, he would say, when you wake up in the morning, you're going to have white stuff around your mouth. Like I'm going to put, my dick in your mouth when you sleep, and I'm going to come on your face and things like that. And already having had the trauma from them saying that's what Randy, that guy, did to me, it made me even more afraid of it. So I was already covering my neck and my mouth, but I was doing it more. I was like almost holding my neck. And so people in the family would actually laugh at me because they thought it was weird. And then I pulled my hair even more so after this. And I was a selective mute. I wouldn't talk at all. And when I went to sleep, I was really triggered when I went to sleep because I didn't want to wake up with him doing any of those things. And he would wake up and laugh and tease. And he would say these things in front of everyone else, and they were all older. My older cousins, they were adults, and they had children at that time. They were grown folks. And one day, one of my cousins, Eugene, was visiting, and he doesn't really come around much, and I know why now, but he doesn't come around much, and my cousin was saying those things, and people were laughing, and he said, wait a minute, Tony's little. And why is he saying that to Tony? And he's like, you should go out and find some young women or someone to interact with your age. But that's your cousin, and Tony's little. And why is everyone else not stopping this? Like, that's not okay. He shouldn't be talking this way. And I remember Eugene was so upset that he left. But I remember feeling like a positive connection to Eugene about that. But I've never seen him again. But one day I awakened and I couldn't breathe. And I thought I was having an asthma attack or something. My siblings, a lot of people in my family have severe asthma. I don't. I have asthma, but I've never had an attack like that. And I thought I was finally having, like, a part of me was like glad. I was like, oh my God, I can relate to my siblings now. But a part of me, I knew what was going on and I didn't want to open my eyes. And so I couldn't breathe, and I woke up from that. And at the same time that I couldn't breathe, I was slightly aroused. And I remember feeling like something warm on my face. And my cousin was on top of me. He was kissing me and trying to stick his tongue in my mouth, and then fondling me as well. But he was big, so I couldn't breathe. And I opened my eyes and I saw it was him. And we kind of struggled, and I pushed him off or whatever. And he kept trying to convince me that I enjoyed it. And I remember him saying to me, like, you're enjoying it because I was erect. He's like, you're enjoying it, and that's the reason why you are. And in my head, I was like, I'm not. But then I was like, why is it true? Like, I am aroused. But my head was like, no, I'm not aroused, and I was conflicted. But I knew I wasn't aroused from him. And so his sister, we were all on the floor, and then his sister was in her bed with her daughter. I awakened her, and then she cursed him out, but she didn't do anything. She stayed asleep. And so I crawled under her bed and slept under her bed. Even though I thought she was going to smash me because she was a big girl, it was still small enough for me to get under, but he couldn't get under because he was too big. And so I slept underneath her bed the whole night. And the next day I went out and I was 11. I was going on 12 at this time. And there was a group of girls across the street. And he was already there with one of my brothers. They were over there talking to the girls. And I came out, and as awkward as I thought I was at the time, and the girl said, "Oh, he's really cute. Who's that?" And my cousin, he looked at me. He's like, "Oh, he's a fag. He's a punk. He's a sissy. He tried to touch me last night." When it was the opposite situation, and I was so angry because it was embarrassing. I hadn't even come across the street yet, and that's what I encountered. So I was mad, and a part of me was like, "That was you. Like, you did all of those things, you know?" And so I went over to a basketball court and I started playing basketball, which I hate as well. But I started playing basketball just to, release some stress. And he came over with my brother, and I made him run home. I got really mad, and I didn't attack him, but I confronted him. And I told my brother, "We're brothers. The two of us, the one of him. He's bigger, but he can't be both of us. So if you help me, we can get him." So he ran off, and I knew that if I went back to the house, I would have gotten beaten from my aunt for, bothering her precious son, who was bigger and older. So I walked away and I left.